Hi there, my name is Amber. I am the editor for this little podcast, and this is just a small preamble to it to let you know that when I recorded my part in this podcast, I was in a car and my audio isn't so great. So please forgive the poor audio on my part, and please don't judge us based on that because I will not be making that same mistake again in the future. Thank you, and please enjoy.
Hello and welcome to Council of the Whills, a brand new Star Wars podcast focused on news and rumors regarding the future of Star Wars and where the property is going to go in the future. I am Amber.
Hi Amber, I'm Jen.
Hi Amber and Jen, I'm Jane.
What's up guys? How y'all doing today?
Doing awesome.
It's been an awesome, relaxing week.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Well, so first and foremost, because this is episode 1, I think it's prudent that we introduce ourselves. So who would like to go first?
I guess I'll go. My name is Jane. I'm used to be in the military. I got out of the military, and now I draw things for a living, and it's awesome. I first discovered Star Wars when I was a little kid, when they used to be on the TNT specials, and my lightsaber color is purple.
I'm Jen. I have not been in the military, but I work for a import-export company as in a super adult position. But I also try to go to as many cons as I can, and I discovered Star Wars as a small child when my dad had me watch them with him and started dressing up then as Leia, and now I dress up as Rey. And I guess my lightsaber color is blue from the last test I took.
And I am Amber. I work at a television station, which is a lot of fun, and I get exposed to a lot of media that way, which is fantastic. I went to film school, so I really enjoyed film analysis as far as movies go, and I've been a fan of Star Wars since I was a little kid when my dad kind of forced it on my brother and I always wanted to watch the Darth Vader movie.
But yeah, just wanted to give everyone a quick heads up that this podcast, we do discuss spoilers. So if you don't like spoilers, we will try to mark the areas and say this has spoilers and this doesn't have spoilers. So just wanted to give everyone a heads up.
And we'll be introducing each thing that we talk about. So if you need to look it up, we'll have links as well.
All right, I guess going on to it, we are going to discuss the most recent Star Wars happenings that have gone on in the past couple weeks. It's been a little slow overall, but especially with all the Han Solo stuff, all these little stories have definitely added up for a ton of things for us to talk about.
Yeah. So speaking of Han Solo, there's a new director after that kerfuffle last week. Thoughts?
It makes me happy, I gotta be honest. I like him.
For those of you who don't know, the new director is Ron Howard, replacing Lord and Miller of the Lego Movie and 21 Jump Street fame. I am kind of excited that there is a new director because I have a feeling that the creative differences were one group wanted to make a buddy comedy road trip in space, and that is not what the movie was going to be.
I definitely agree. Having read some of the reports, it's just it was like a tug-of-war contest between what Lord and Miller wanted versus what Kathleen Kennedy and Lucasfilm wanted, and it seemed like, especially on Lucasfilm's end, they were willing and trying to find that happy ground while still maintaining the feel of Star Wars. But Lord and Miller wanted to make their movie their way and weren't willing to really give any room.
Yeah, I'm not saying that a buddy comedy in space wouldn't have been fun, but I do think that they were trying. You're right. The two groups were trying to work together, and I have a feeling that part of the reason why it happened all now is they were trying to put together something for either D23 or San Diego Comic-Con for Han Solo to premiere it and say, this is what it's going to be, here are your first looks, and they realized they had nothing.
Exactly. Well, not only that, from what some of the reports I've read, it just seems like there was a lot of unprofessionalism going on the end of Lord and Miller. Some of what I've seen said that, especially according to, I think it's the HollywoodReporter.com, I think they said that they wanted like 12 to 15 different camera angles, and Lord and Miller were only giving them 3, and not starting shoots until 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and you need to make the most of your allotted daylight time. It just seems like there was a lot of unprofessionalism going on.
Mm-hmm. But, I mean, and from what we've also heard is that they were asking for Lord and Miller would try to have people do their own thing and be creative and improvise. And while I think Lucasfilm is open to creativity and minimal improvisation, it wasn't to the extent that they wanted or that they believed that they should have. And I think that's just a fundamental difference between different types of making a movie.
Exactly. Well, not only that, Lawrence Kasdan, as I understand, he's not really the biggest fan of improv. Really, the most well-known example of improv is "I love you, I know." And as I understand, Harrison Ford just sprang in on him when they were shooting. He didn't actually try to run it by Kasdan. But
it works. And the other thing that I think, as I've talked to with like my friends and coworkers and other people, is there's the Han Solo that you get at the very end of Return of the Jedi, which I now have to remember to say instead of just saying Jedi, and in The Force Awakens. And he is a very different Han Solo than even in Empire and in A New Hope. And we're dealing with pre-A New Hope Han Solo, who's a smuggler and not exactly a nice person. Like, his sarcasm isn't haha funny, it's biting. So I wonder if that's also, I think I saw somewhere that it was a fundamental not understanding of the character of Han Solo as well.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think it was the Star Wars Newsnet report that said that they were taking it on an Ace Ventura like avenue, and that's terrible. No.
Ace Ventura's, they're fun movies. I like watching them. I don't think that's Han Solo. I don't think that's Lando either. And I wonder how much that was, and I wonder how the reshoots are going to work with the cast, because you have 2 people that are on TV shows that may need to be pulled to do other things.
Exactly. Well, I don't know about Lando's actor. I get his name mixed up with another actor. Is it Donald Glover?
Donald Glover.
There you go, Donald Glover. I get him and Danny Glover mixed up.
Yay.
I am back.
Okay. How do you feel about the multiple different takes, like when Lucasfilm was asking for 12 to 15 and Lord and Miller was only doing 3?
Yeah, as someone who actually studied film, it's not really prudent to take the minimum. You'd much rather want to overdo it and have a lot to work with, because, you know, sometimes you really don't realize that you need that close-up shot until you're in the editing room. So it's better to go ahead and get it now than to have to call everyone back.
Makes sense.
Gotcha. It seems like a way to prevent or minimize reshoots rather than, oh, well, we're going to have reshoots anyway. You want to minimize how many reshoots you have to do, because that's a lot of money.
Exactly.
And it's a lot of getting everybody's schedules to line up again, and I don't know how easy that is with this cast.
Yeah.
And I can never say Emily Clark?
Amelia Clark.
Amelia, I never say her name right. I am excited to see Donald Glover as Lando, though. I think he will do a really good job with it.
Oh, he's so good as Lando. It's like, yes, that needs to be Lando, because he embodies the character. If you imagine young Lando, that's who I imagined.
I think he's a perfect cast choice. I remember when there was the fan petitions to get him to be young Lando, And I remember following that, and then, like, all the news announcements came out that he was reading for the role, that he was in talks for the role. And then I was at dinner with my family when I got the news that he got the part, and I was, like, freaking out. And everybody thought I was crazy, but I was really happy about it.
I'm really happy, and he's such a big Star Wars fan, too, that I'm like, I'm so happy you're doing it. I'm just so happy, because I think that he can also, he's really good at comedic timing, so if you're going to have comedy, I think he can push it and make it work really well.
That he could have that suave, kind of sly underdog comedy that we love from Lando without having it feel like it's just thrown in our face and overdone and like force-fed.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's a really dynamic actor because he was really funny on Community, but he's also kind of got that strange, like, dry sort of humor / drama on Atlanta. So I think he brings a lot of good to the role.
Yeah. And
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was like, yeah, Donald Glover, and I've only seen Han Solo's actor. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that name.
Ehrenreich.
Yeah,
Alden Ehrenreich.
Alden Ehrenreich. I've seen him in exactly one movie.
I haven't seen him in a dang thing.
I've only seen him in Hail Caesar, and I thought he was good. I think he's a good actor, and I feel really bad for him because he has this role that it's one of the most iconic roles. I think Han is even, I don't want to say more iconic than Luke, but just as iconic as Luke.
Well, and I wonder, because they brought in the acting coach, I'm not sure how much of that is because he can't act, because he did lead, I guess, yeah, he led Beautiful Creatures, which is the one that I saw him in, and was fine. Like, I was entertained the entire movie. But if it wasn't so much his acting as you need to act like Harrison Ford, and this guy is going to help you act like Harrison Ford.
That's kind of the tough part, because he has to follow in the footsteps of Harrison Ford, but like how do I say this?
He has to make the character his own.
Exactly. And you don't want this to be like a Hayden Christensen thing, where if it's not well received, his career is toast. He's done. So I absolutely understand them hiring the acting coach, and as I understand, it's not that uncommon for people to bring an acting coach on set.
Yeah, just not this late in the game.
And I think that was because they were kind of hoping that they would look at the takes, find some things, and be able to work with it, because he beat out a bunch of other people. So they saw something in him that was like, he can do this role, and he can bring life to it. But I guess they just were seeing the takes, the dailies, and going, there's something missing, and we have to figure out what it is. And so I wonder if they thought acting coach before they thought director.
I don't know. Well, it could also be because you have Lord and Miller going their direction, and then you have the new director coming in who's pulling him another direction. An acting coach, I think, would be a great way to help kind of bring him in and recenter him. Does that make sense?
Wasn't the acting coach brought in a couple months ago?
Really?
I think they said in May.
Really? Yeah. I thought they brought him in brought the acting coach in when things hit, like shortly before things hit the fan.
I think it's because it became in rapid succession and I don't think they announced that they had brought in an acting coach, so it's just what we're getting is all, it seems like it happened at once when some things were spaced out.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of, like, secrecy on the set as far as what was actually happening, because I know that, Alden was the one who went to them about the directors not working out.
Which, that takes a lot of guts.
That does.
No, I completely agree. And the thing with the acting coach is, like y'all were saying, if the directors were trying to take the character one way, Lucasfilm may have been looking at the dailies and were like, oh, well, in this select scene, he's not really getting the Han Solo we need. So they go and get an acting coach, and then Alden's like, yeah, no, it's not my acting in as much as it's them telling me how to act. which, you know, it's conjecture, of course, but it's a thing that happens a lot is when someone gets hired for, like, an iconic role like this, they get directed improperly, and they're not playing the role the way the studios want, which is a lot of the problem that people had with Andrew Garfield and Spider-Man. They had a vision of Peter Parker, but the director was pushing Andrew to do something different.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, it creates... Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
I'll say it creates this, like, division. Like, do you side with Lord and Miller, or do you side with Kathleen Kennedy? And people have their opinions one way or the other, and no matter what you do, someone is painted as the bad guy and as the villain.
Yeah. And I don't know how much it's siding. I want to see the finished product, because I think Lord and Miller could do a really good Star Wars movie. I don't know if they could do a young Han Solo movie, is the thing. I think they could do maybe like another sequel to it, or maybe they could do a fun bounty hunter movie, which everybody wants, which is how I will kind of accept a Boba Fett movie, and play with the characters that way. But I don't know if this was the right material for them.
Exactly. Well, this was Lawrence Kasdan's last script. I mean, this is his baby. This is his last, like, big movie, and I totally understand Lawrence Kasdan going, no, you're going to stick to my script.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, when you have a legendary screenwriter like Lawrence Kasdan writing your script, you don't sit there and say, all right, let's improv everything.
Yeah. And there's the argument of creators who know their characters too much and go overboard, but I don't think that would be the case with this. I think Kasdan knows where to rein himself into, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Definitely. It's crazy. The more I read about it, the more I see people panicking and throwing blame, and it's a mess. That's really all everyone can agree on, is that the Han Solo movie is a freaking mess. And I do not envy Kathleen Kennedy and the actors and people at Lucasfilm and the set and the crew. It's like, this is bad.
Yeah, and the thing is, I want it to do well, because if a Han Solo movie does well, like Rogue One did well, we can get those other movies. Like, everybody talks about wanting an Obi-Wan movie, wanting a Boba Fett movie. The Boba Fett movie was shelved, but if this does well, they can go back and say, maybe I'll do that, or they can go back and start an Obi-Wan movie, or they can go and do an Old Republic movie. But they have to make sure that people are willing to watch these movies, which is why I'm saddened by all this, but I really hope it makes the movie really good, so people will go and see it, and it will make money, so we can get the next movies.
Yeah, definitely. I guess the one last thing I wanted to say on it is it's like clockwork, because wasn't this around the time in Rogue One when everyone heard about the reshoots and people sort of freaking out and panicking and going, oh my god, the movie's going to be terrible. And like 60% of the movie was reshot, if not more. And Rogue One was amazing.
Yeah, and actually I think that's probably a good thing that it doesn't sound like Han Solo is going to be revealed either at D23 or Comic-Con, because the movie revealed to us at Celebration in 2016 for Rogue One was different than the movie that you saw in December. And I think Lucasfilm realized that, and I'm kind of glad now that they're like, nope, we're going to reshoot this, we're going to make this right, and we're not going to say anything now.
Exactly.
Well, I don't know. I'll let you know if they say anything.
Amber, do you have anything else you want to add to this?
I think they have a lot that's banking on the Han Solo movie, because Rogue One was a concept at best. It was, how do we explain the people who died to, get the Death Star plans to us? And it kind of went back and fixed a plot hole. That was the extent of the purpose of the movie. But to go back and do a a character prequel is a huge risk, and I think they're approaching it even more carefully than they did Rogue One. And so they have a lot riding on it because, like you're saying, if the Han Solo movie does well, that opens up the potential for the Obi-Wan movie, for the Boba Fett movie, for any random character. And I think Rogue One did a good job in establishing the fact that people will watch a Star Wars movie that doesn't have characters they already know in it, with the exception of Darth Vader and Tarkin. But I think this is their kind of big gamble right now to see just how far they can really take the standalone films, or if Lucasfilm needs to remain the Skywalker saga production factory.
Exactly. There's only so many years between A New Hope and Empire to make movies in.
Yeah, well, also when you go back in time, it makes it more difficult to fit into the canon, because there's someone out there somewhere who's going over every single movie still or every single frame, and making sure that it's all canon compliant. And if it's not, it's going to be all over the internet.
They should just hire a bunch of nerds to help them out.
I know.
I volunteer.
I volunteer as tribute.
Yeah. Okay. And we also have this week the new Forces of Destiny preview, which looks amazing.
Agreed.
Yes. Oh, that makes my animator heart so happy.
I like that it's 2D. I like that it's focusing on characters that have plot lines, but maybe can get more explanation out of them. Like in the preview, it looks like Ahsoka goes back to the Jedi Temple and gets her Padawan braid. I'm like, yes! Oh, tell me more.
What I found interesting is how tight-lipped they're being with Rey's storyline, in the sense that the only thing we got from Rey is the 24-hour period between her meeting BB-8 and her, taking him to Unkar. So
right.
We're not actually getting a whole lot of additional storyline as far as Rey goes. We're mostly just filling in that blank between BB-8 going with her scavenging.
Well, there was a comic book series announced that goes into Rey's past and her growing up on Jakku. And as I understand, Unkar is also going to be in, I think, the second issue of that comic book series. I know, it's like no one wants to see more of Unkar.
I love Simon Pegg, but I hate Unkar blood.
1/4 portion.
But I don't want to see more Unkar either.
That's just.
I do want to. Mm-hmm.
That's just what I've read, I think, on Star Wars Newsnet, that they confirmed that I think it's the second or third issue. It's going to have at least Unkar in it in some capacity.
I mean, you do have to have him in the background because she has to learn how to bring him stuff and what she needs to survive and what a portion is and all this stuff, unless, she's been born on Jakku and knows what a portion is her entire life and how to get them. But I have a feeling that's not the case.
Well, I hope in these comics that at least they go into how Rey got her flight simulator. I think that would be a really wonderful sort of plot hole that could be filled that gets people to stop going, she's a Mary Sue.
Oh, yeah. You only find out about you read Before the Awakening.
Mm-hmm.
And so, so many people are like, oh, well, how can she fly so well? I'm like, well, if you would read the other canon material, you would know, so stop complaining.
Exactly.
Yeah, because Luke Skywalker, who's never left Tatooine, please correct me if I'm wrong, before going on his adventure, can totally fly an X-Wing. Let's just put that one out there.
Yeah.
He used the Force.
He's a Gary Stew.
I love my precious little space son.
I know. I love Luke Skywalker. wish we would treat other characters in the same way. It's like, I will totally suspend my belief and be like, yes, Rey built a speeder. Clearly she can fly the Millennium Falcon. And it looks... Uh-huh.
I would say, well, it's kind of established that, like, that Rey, she built this flight simulator in her spare time, and that she had spare time. In the Force Awakens novelization, when Unkar offers her 60 portions, she thinks, oh, well, I could actually do some of this other stuff that I had planned and that I wanted to do. So she did have free time. And it corresponds with Luke growing up on Tatooine, where he would go, like, mess around in Beggar's Canyon, and that he had time to cultivate things other than moisture farming.
Exactly.
Yep. So, what story are you guys most excited to see out of Forces of Destiny?
I'm really excited for all of them. I'm interested also to see how Padme's is going to fit in with the Clone Wars canon, if they're going to figure out how to mesh that in there. And I'm kind of glad for at least Warwick Davis that Wicket is back, so he can get more Wicket toys.
I'm definitely interested to see, because it looks like you have Leia on Endor, so I'm just really interested to see like how they do that, because whenever you do a story that's already based within the confines of another story, it can be kind of sketch, because what if whatever happens in that story doesn't quite match up with what happened in the movie? So I'm interested to see like manage to interweave these little stories with the material we already have.
And isn't Leia also on Hoth in it too? She's on Endor and Hoth.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see how many like stories we actually get out of each one.
I'm not sure. Well, and one of them, it shows Leia and Sabine together, and that made me really excited. It's like, ooh, there's going to be a little bit of like crossover and cross-continuity going on.
Yeah. I think Leia does show up in an episode of Rebels. I need to still watch that, which I like, because it would make sense for her to show up in that, and it would make sense for her to show up in these and talking with Sabine, because they're fighting for the same cause, I believe. Oh god, I need to watch Rebels. Somebody's going to comment about that.
Don't feel bad. I can't afford the Disney Channel, so it's just like, no. I'll catch them when I can catch them online.
Yeah, whenever they go up on Netflix.
Exactly. I did watch the Obi-Wan v. Maul one, and that was about it, because I love Darth Maul. But yeah, it's...
Go ahead.
Well, they all look really exciting, and I think Leia might have more than one. At least that's the way I see it, because you see her in pre-Force Awakens, then you see her on Hoth, and then you see her again on Endor. So it makes me wonder if like she crossovers into Sabine's a little bit, or if she has multiple ones just to herself.
Well, do we know how long the run is?
I don't know if they've ever actually... Have they said the run? For some reason I'm like 6 episodes, but I'm like, but that doesn't sound right. Or that they all get an episode. But again, that doesn't sound right, but it could be right. It's because we have Ahsoka, Padme, Sabine, Leia, and Rey.
And that's 4.
And do we do Hera?
Yeah, I thought that Hera was going to get one, and I didn't see Hera anywhere in Forces in the little preview.
Because I think she's on the logo as well.
She probably didn't interact with a famous character in her storyline, so they didn't use her in the trailer. So people wouldn't be like, who's that?
Exactly. That could be it. But yeah, I don't remember if they've ever actually said how many episodes it's going to be. I know they've announced the toy line, and they announced who's getting episodes. But I don't know if they said, okay, so there's going to be 3 episodes for each character, or if it's going to move around. Like, are we going to start with, like, Padme and Ahsoka, and then move on to Hera and Sabine, and move to Leia, then move to Rey, or if it's going to be a new one each week and we're not sure who's coming.
I don't know, but we left out Jin. Jin is also getting her own.
Oh, right.
I was like, there's somebody else. I can't remember.
Oh,
sorry,
cool.
Jin.
I'm actually curious to learn more about Jin because I think there's a novel that talks about Jin with her time with Saw Gerrera, and I haven't read that one yet. It's on my to-read list, but I haven't had a chance yet because I'm still finishing Thrawn. But
is that Rebel Rising?
Yes, Rebel Rising. But like she was basically dumped by Saw when she was 16, so it would be really cool to see how she adjusts and how she basically makes ends meet as the daughter of an Imperial science officer who's just left on her own.
Yeah, I kind of, it irks me in the sense that everybody was like, oh, Jin is Rey's mom and whatnot. But they do have a lot of really interesting parallels, in my opinion, in the sense that they sort of had to fend for themselves for a long while. They got really strong personalities, and, Jin was made a little bit more likable in the reshoots, which I don't really care for, but I think it is an interesting comparison between the two of them.
I mean, I called original Jin Space Katniss in front of a room at Celebration, so I was really excited to see that. And not saying that the Jin in Rogue One is bad. I like her, but it was just not what I was expecting. And I really want to see how she gets there because it's a really large jump in Rogue One. I'm like, wait, but how?
Well, as I remember,
I really want someone to go into the damn kyber crystal around her neck.
Yes. Well, did either of you guys read Catalyst?
No.
I'm working on it.
So, how far are you into Catalyst, and how spoilery do you want me to get?
I'm about a page in, and I don't care about spoilers.
Okay.
And already put a spoiler warning on the episode.
Exactly.
Fantastic. That must have happened while I was gone.
So, Jin's mother, Lyra, she's force sensitive. She's not extremely in tune like the Jedi, and the book goes into it, but she does have a kyber crystal, and she uses it sort of as her anchor to the Force. And she doesn't, I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it, like she doesn't let the Force dictate her and her life, and she's not like Chirrut or Baze, where she vehemently believes it and follows that path. Lyra is very independent. She's very much her own person, and she does what she wants. And she hates Krennic and makes it very well known. But she's always had this sort of... Go ahead.
I think it's really interesting that we're getting so many different views of the Force and how people interact with it, especially when, we hear rumors of, Rian Johnson really bringing in the whole concept of the Force as, something really real and tangible and within everything. And so you have, people like Chirrut and Baze who, worship it, basically. You have the Jedi who wield it, and you have other people who acknowledge it but don't really base their life around it, like Lyra and Maz Kanata.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that because it opens the possibilities of, you might not be the Force-sensitive Jedi, but you still have powers, and I believe it is in Bloodline where Leia frets about how she's always been so persuasive and all this stuff, and is that her, or is that the Force that she's never really been that in tune with because it hasn't been her thing? And I like that. I like that there's different levels because growing up, it was learning about it was like you are either Force sensitive and a Jedi, or a Sith, or you are nothing. And I'm like, oh,
yeah.
What if you're a little bit?
Well, yeah, the expansion of it's awesome, and I really hope that they kind of do more world building in Forces of Destiny, and they don't just do cute little one shots to sell toys.
I think it all depends on how much money it makes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But I do love how these new installments in Star Wars canon are really breaking down the barriers of what the Force is, and is really destroying this sort of like diametric opposition of either you're evil and you're dark, or you're good and you're light. You know, either you're a Jedi or you're a Sith.
I like that. It had been that, and I do kind of like that they are going back to, it's not just things in your blood that lets you feel the Force. It's all around you, and we're reminding you of that, as opposed to with the prequels. But yeah, we all went through that and went, wait, what?
The midichlorian is the powerhouse of the cell.
The midichlorian is the powerhouse of the Force.
Well,
Exactly.
It goes back to what Yoda says. It surrounds us. It binds us. And it's really going back to the roots of what the Force is. And I think even George Lucas said in one of his many interviews that anyone could be Force sensitive. It was to really create the sense of wonder, but that anyone could do it. It wasn't just the chosen one. It wasn't just this Force sensitive kid. Anyone could do it. That when Han was doing the Kessel Run, he was tapping into the Force.
See, it's stuff like that I love, because I am all for, like, reluctantly or begrudgingly Force sensitive Han Solo, who, I don't know, sees Luke trying to help Leia with meditation, or Luke and Ben doing something and just tries it because they ask him, and he goes, "Oh, crap. I guess I am feeling something," and it's all this hokum magic actually is something that I've been doing all along, and just I want that. Like, I would love that to be canon.
He is one with the Force, and the Force is with him.
Exactly.
Yes.
Well, I've always loved how Han, he wants nothing to do with all this mumbo jumbo, and it rules his life, and he's in the middle of it no matter how much he tries to escape it. He gets thrown right back into the middle of it.
He married Darth Vader's daughter.
Oh, Han.
We're a bit off the topic of Forces of Destiny, so is there anything else we want to say in that regard?
I'm just excited, and I'm really glad that they're doing it to give characters that are, not under the Disney Lucasfilm umbrella, really, a chance to be in this canon too.
And,
Agreed.
Yeah, and say just because I animate, I'm so happy to see some 2D Star Wars. It just makes me so happy again.
I really like the art style. I think it's really nice and simple, and I don't like when there's just too much stuff going on. So it's nice to just have something pleasant to look at.
Like, for the ability to animate, you can't have things like big and complex because you have to redraw it. I mean, it's done digitally, but you still have to recreate it, and the more complicated it is, the more difficult it is to animate. And I really like how they found that balance of stylizing it and making it appealing for children, but still feeling like Star Wars.
Exactly.
It looks fun.
It does.
Exactly, and it looks fun. Yeah. All right. So potentially in the next 2 or 3 weeks, not depending anymore, there's going to be a new trailer for Last Jedi.
Woo!
Yay!
Yes. And it's not so much anymore whether it's going to be D23 or Comic-Con. Disney put out that they will be having a reel of Last Jedi at D23 during their live-action movie panel.
Oh, I did not read that. I'm jealous of you, Jen. I'm not going to lie.
I'm going to be sleeping on another floor.
For those of you who are listening, Jen, who lives in California, she is able to go to both D23 and San Diego Comic-Con, so I'm very, very jealous.
But the good news is we will be able to have a person from the podcast there being able to tell us everything instead of having to wait for news reports, which means you guys will get all of the first-hand information as well.
Yeah. I just apparently, looking at some of the stuff for D23, I might have to check my cell phone to go into that panel. It looks kind of intense, so we'll see how that goes.
Now, I was surprised at Celebration that they joked with us in the beginning that you can't have your cell phones out, and then once the panel started, they were like, "Psych, you can have your phones." It's like, I thought
they were live streaming it, so
gotcha.
That was why I was like, really? Okay. There was only one part of the Rogue One panel where they said, please don't have your cell phones out, which was the trailer that they showed us.
Gotcha.
Which nobody else saw, so I understand. But, well, and people did record it. I saw a couple bootlegs on the internets afterwards, but it was taken down, so.
Well, that's on them if they want to risk getting kicked out of a panel after sleeping on a floor overnight. I'm not.
Yeah.
I would never.
But I'm excited to see what they're going to show, because I've heard, I believe it was Adam Driver say, if he had his way, he would rather that nobody saw any previews for this movie, because it's so different and done well that he would rather people didn't come in with any expectations.
I'm so sorry, Adam.
I know.
I have nothing but expectation.
I think the whole world does. Yeah, whether they want Rey Skywalker or Rey Solo or Rey Kenobi, everyone has their camp, and that's what they want.
You forgot Rey Palpatine.
Oh, and Rey Palpatine.
And Rey Fett.
Rey Fett?
Oh, that's a new one.
I have seen Rey Fett. I have seen Rey Amidala. Yeah, I've seen a lot.
It would be Rey Nibiru, but anyway.
That's just like grasping at straws. Like, and also, what's wrong with her being Rey Nobody?
There's people just really want like a canon connection. I mean, we could at some point we will do like a Rey's heritage theory extravaganza. So obviously, I don't think we should get too much into it right now. But it is one of the bigger mystery boxes of Star Wars, and I'm not surprised with as much as they hyped it up, how much hype there is around it.
Everybody loves a mystery. But yeah, since it will be an episode, if you have a Rey theory that we haven't mentioned or know of one, feel free to send it to us or leave a comment with it. Yes. So that way we can talk about it as well.
Yes, we love comments. Comments are good.
Yes.
And we got some new stills this week as well. One of them is a bunch of Phasma leading an army. I'm like, yes, give me Phasma.
Yeah, that makes me the most excited because you get to see her with her stormtroopers against, they're against a green screen, but there's some really awesome fire and flames, and it looks so awesome.
Yeah, I haven't seen these, so this is actually pretty cool. That must be... The green screen has got to be like the outside. I swear that's probably the shot of them walking through the door that we see in the teaser.
Yeah. And I think the running is, we see Rey running in the teaser too.
Yeah, they were.
So that's what that is.
They were very
careful not to give us anything we haven't seen already.
Yeah, which makes me kind of curious about the new trailer. Is it just going to be more of the same from a different point of view, or are we actually going to get new material?
From a certain point of view.
Yeah. I do remember at some point when all the Force Awakens trailers were coming out, they did mention that every trailer was in chronological order, as in all the scenes were in chronological order.
I do remember that.
So I'm wondering if they're doing the same thing with Last Jedi or not.
I don't know, but
I don't think so.
Well, I rewatched.
Because it wouldn't really make sense for there to be that much of, like, I don't know. Because we don't see Finn for a while, and if all of those scenes come before, like, Finn at all is kind of I don't know. It's hard for me to believe that he's still in the back to suit that long.
True.
Well, on the chronological order, when I heard that, I rewatched a lot of the Force Awakens trailers, and they might be in approximate chronological order, but they're still picking and choosing different scenes that aren't in the exact order that they make it into the final cut of the movie. And it could be changing or changes that they made during editing. But yeah, it's definitely not in exact chronological order.
I seem to remember, I think it was J.J. Abrams said they were editing up until a week before the premiere. Like, it went down to the wire on that.
I mean,
These perfectionists, man.
I don't blame him. Like, every little bit's going to get scrutinized and thrown on the internet and theorized and criticized, so you really can't blame him for working until the wire.
Fans
Exactly.
were thirsty.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. And the thing is the teaser trailer we got does not look like it's very, very much of the movie. Like, it definitely has a whole lot of a first act vibe to it. Because we don't see anything. We don't see Finn awake at all. We see Rey with her hair still up, even though the promotional material we get shows that her hair is down, and it would be silly to market all that based on the end scene of the movie. So it doesn't seem like the teaser trailer, and even, to an extent, the shots that we've seen behind the scenes are going much further than the first act, at the very least.
That's a good point. And it's also good for Lucasfilm to not give a lot away, because we all know it's starting on Ahch-To. We know that.
Yeah.
Because that's what everybody said. So if you give that, plus here's where everybody else has ended up, that's not giving away a lot. That's giving away the beginning. And you can give away a beginning without letting you know what the story is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because we know Rey's on Ahch-To. We know Finn's in a back to suit. We know Poe's on, the base. Nothing is strange to us from that teaser trailer, with the exception of where the hell is Kylo Ren in that shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We also know... Go ahead.
And we know that Leia is running the Resistance. And she's going to be in the trailer and featured as heavily as possible, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
They're going to definitely do a nostalgia draw, I believe.
Well, that was Carrie Fisher's last movie. Like, that movie.
Yeah.
Last Jedi is going to make so much money just based on that.
I'm going to cry.
Yeah.
I already know this.
So as far as the trailer drop goes, do you think we're actually going to get any new information, or do you think we're just going to get more of the same as far as, the shots? Like, do you think we'll have any sort of story reveal other than it's time for the Jedi to end?
I don't know. I think we're going to see more characters now, especially after the Vanity Fair photo shoot. I think we'll get a shot of Hux. I think we'll get a shot of Rose. We might get a shot of Paige. I don't know how much of the story will be mentioned. We might see the space casino. But again, I think it's for at least Rey and Luke and maybe Kylo Ren, it's going to be the same. Here's lightsabers. The Jedi must end. That's it.
Well, I don't know if they're going to keep going with the Jedi must end line, because as far as Daisy and John's reaction went, they didn't seem to understand where that line was coming from. So I kind of feel like that line in particular is like teaser misdirection. Like,
Well,
the Force is strong in my family. You have that power too.
Yeah.
well, and I think it's part of one of the spoilers is that somebody posted that the marketing is going to be aimed to make you think Luke has gone to the dark side. And that the trailer that was released at Celebration, you're like, yeah, I can see it. I can see Luke not so much on the light at the moment.
Oh,
Or
yeah.
not doing what he should be doing.
Well, everyone that I saw watching trailer reactions were like, "Oh my God, Luke went to the dark side. Whoa, what does this mean?"
I think that's a good thing, though, because I never thought, I mean, I did. To be fair, I thought that Kylo Ren was Luke's son and that Luke was now the new Darth Vader ruling the galaxy as father and son with his son. Before I saw The Force Awakens. I was very wrong, but now, everybody immediately thinks that the Jedi ending means that he's gone dark, but I think it means that we're getting more of this middle ground sort of perspective we've been allowed to have. Like more recently with, like Rogue One and whatnot.
And I think it also taken in perspective of the galaxy persisted just fine without the Jedi. I mean, it had the Empire, but there was no Jedi, and the Resistance was doing pretty well, and we've gotten rid of the Empire, and yes, the First Order came, but again, the Jedi aren't really fighting that. People are getting along without this peacekeeping force and doing their own thing. It's not perfect, but it's not any worse or better than if the Jedi were there. So maybe it's the idea of this super special peacekeeping force that maybe needs to end. That's not what they're supposed to be. And that's what happened and led to their downfall. And now you have to get rid of the idea of a Jedi to be able to have them do their work.
I wonder if they're going to go more into the idea that because the Force is you even have Yoda in the teaser trailer, like, surrounds us, finds us. I wonder if they're going to get more into the idea that you don't necessarily have to be a strong Force sensitive to, use the Force, because I know we discussed that earlier in this, but I wonder if that's like an idea they're actually going to go with.
Well, some
Like maybe Finn isn't Force sensitive per se, in the sense that he can be a Jedi, but maybe he did, kind of pull from the Force during The Force Awakens. Without, having to be a Jedi.
Well, hasn't it also...
And maybe... Go ahead.
I'll say, hasn't it also been suggested and said, publicly, that Rian Johnson in The Last Jedi got to rewrite some of, the rules of the Force and the rules of the Star Wars galaxy and universe, and we're going to see that in The Last Jedi.
I don't think it's a rewrite in as much as an expansion, but yeah, I did read that he got a lot of free reign as far as the market goes.
And I'm wondering how much of it is a rewrite or expansion, or it's always been there, it's just been kind of pushed to the side of, these are the Force abilities that you can have, or this is how the Force works. And it's just never been explained because we've been so focused on what a Skywalker did recently.
So it's kind of like the Guardians of the Whills, because George Lucas had that in mind ever since 4, but they never really got their spotlight until Rogue One.
Yes.
Gotcha. Well, I guess this is kind of a great segue into our next segment. It's our speculation segment that we call Your Snoke Theory Sucks, and it's where we take the latest, greatest, and weirdest rumors and leaks on the internet, and we rate them, and from a score of 1 Snoke, which is, I'll buy it, it could happen, to 5 Snokes to no way in hell. So for our first episode, the leak or speculation came from 4chan, and we'll have a link to it in the description. And it definitely plays off of what we've been discussing. I have it pulled up in front of me, so do you want me to read it, or do you want to read it?
Let me pull it up real quick. And yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
All right. This is from Cosmic Book News, and the original leak, for lack of a better word, came from 4chan. And the meat and potatoes of it says that Star Wars The Last Jedi rough cut has been done for weeks. Luke will be disenfranchised, and Rey will convince him to come back. The marketing will make fans assume Luke went to the dark side, that Rey doesn't go to the dark side, and that she is the reincarnation of the first Force user. It is suggested that the Millennium Falcon may be destroyed. Force ghosts of Yoda and Anakin are said to be featured, and that they can be, and this is in quotation marks, killed. Benicio del Toro's character is said to be named Zen, a known double-crosser. He's famous on both sides, but Leia mentions how he helped the Resistance and even the original Rebellion, and asks him to come help once more to take down Snoke. Regarding Snoke, it's said that he has likely switched bodies before, and is well-liked around the galaxy, and that he's very wealthy. Snoke's story isn't finished, as this one will end on a cliffhanger, following a battle between Luke and Snoke. Let's see. The 4chan user goes on to describe the following, the plot. And he says, Luke meets Rey, tells her how the Force brought her to him. Her parents were scared of her abilities. She is told after a couple scenes that she was born out of necessity, that this will balance out and continue forever with the Force since the beginning all the way to his dad and now her. I think this is taken directly from 4chan because the grammar is a little strange and I'm having to kind of paraphrase it. Luke trains her but tells her after Snoke is defeated that they will cease to fight and that they will not continue the Jedi Order. Luke and Rey have a meditation scene together where she literally walks through a beam of light and can control everything around her. She can change shapes and warp everything around her. Luke tells her she will become even more powerful than Yoda, and she says who, and that this got some chuckles from people who've seen it. Rey also battles a creature that Luke claims to be filled with evil intent and has been threatening the Porgs, the creatures more in tune with the Force than himself. Think Penguins on crack. She defeats this creature only to see it become the ghost of Anakin. Basically, Luke has tried to push her emotionally in every direction on the island in order to awaken her full potential quickly. Luke wants Snoke gone now. It's made clear that Luke is not happy with what Snoke did to Kylo and will do anything to make Rey become stronger quicker in order to destroy him. We get a flashback with Anakin at Luke's school, which I think is a typo. I think they mean Ben. And everything is destroyed. Luke sees young Kylo Ren and says, I don't want to kill you, but your life is in my hands now. We learn later that Luke knew someone else would come along to balance things out when Ben fell to the dark side. Let's see. Luke uses the Force to shut down R2 until this person was found. And he goes on to say that I'm cutting out a ton of details here, but basically the Force is literally connected to everything, and even something like a droid can be aligned if it is willed. Rey confronts Luke about his feelings towards the Jedi Order, his abandonment of his friends, and everything that happened. And they don't come to an agreement. Luke goes on to speak with Yoda while Rey meditates. Yoda admits that Rey is right, that the Jedi of old were hopeful but arrogant, and that a dark side of the Force can't be the only future. Kylo Ren spends a majority of the film with Snoke. Kylo is more unstable and leaves to trace Vader's life in hopes that he will meet his spirit. From the way Snoke acts, he doesn't seem to care much. Also, Force ghosts can be destroyed. They're adding new powers and abilities into this film the way JJ and Kasdan added abilities in The Force Awakens. Let's see. Rian Johnson did write the film, but he definitely wanted things to change in a way that helped send the message and create the tone of the film that he wanted. After Finn wakes up, the entire ship they're on is destroyed. Leia asks him to go find Snoke's weakness, and she has been told that someone has information on how to destroy him, and how they've arrived on a meeting point, which is a new planet. No one likes Leia on this planet. Rose leaves with Finn because it's the last escape pod, and her sister trusts Finn. Poe leaves after the ship is destroyed, as well with Leia and some remaining Resistance members. The First Order take prisoners. They spend most of the film on the run and meet up with Holdo, who immediately butts heads with what they should do next. She wants there to be an alliance with the First Order, and Leia thinks that's a terrible idea, and in the meantime sends Poe to rescue the remaining Resistance supporters. Finn goes on to Snoke's home planet and finds a crypt. Think Dracula. It's a very expensive looking place, and a tomb is opened. Basically, we learn that Snoke has switched bodies and is actually well liked by a lot of different races. No one alive has seen his original body. He's with Rose and Zen. All of this takes place after they escaped the affluent planet and found the kidnapped Resistance members who, after these past few years, have decided to join the First Order. Finn is able to appeal to some of them, but not all of them. And that's really where the article ends.
I think the interesting thing in this is the part, well, one of them, there's multiple, but this is just because I literally just finished Clone Wars like 2 weeks ago, is we're going into more Force Ghosts, and that they can be destroyed, because that is like the last arc of Clone Wars, is how does one become a Force Ghost? What does that mean? Can anybody be a Force Ghost? No. And like Yoda had to go through this whole journey of confronting the light and the dark, and to be able to know that he will become a Force Ghost. And it makes sense when you see that Anakin has become one, because you can follow that trajectory. And we don't know about Obi-Wan, so that's out there. But that the Force, you can be destroyed, your, I guess, second life can be destroyed. I think that's interesting. And I want to see how they bring that in, because they're going to have to talk about not everybody can become a Force Ghost. Here's why. And how that will play into this grand arcing movie with, lightsaber fights and affluent planets and space politics is just how that will work.
It creates. It creates some lasting consequences. They're not just ghosts that can pop out, pop back in.
I think the movie is going to be really interesting if it does follow this path, in the sense that you're clearly going to have like a very like military, political sort of thriller, but you're also going to have this weird like mystical sort of side to it. So you're going to have, the Force aspect, and you're going to have the fight with what you do politically, and a lot of it seems to be based on morality, and that's very interesting to me.
Yeah, and I like the idea that Snoke is kind of out of the picture with Kylo Ren / Ben. Like, he's served his purpose. Now I'm moving on to something else. I found another shiny Force user. I want to focus on them, and this one is used up.
Exactly. Well, I guess what really struck me about this leak, and we don't know the veracity of it, but it definitely hits on some notes and some spoilers that are very reliable that have come out. And one of those is that Tatooine and Mustafar will be featured in some way in The Last Jedi. And if Kylo goes on this sort of like spirit quest, for lack of a better word, to learn more about Darth Vader, then he would have to go to Tatooine and he would have to go to Mustafar.
And it would explain, Hayden Christensen came back to Celebration after not being there since Attack of the Clones. And besides it being the 40th anniversary, there had to be something that got him back there and got him back on that stage. And if it is that he is going to be in The Last Jedi, that brings that, we're going to see Anakin, we're going to see the interaction more focus.
We did get rumors, though, that Hayden was filming with The Last Jedi on the Last Jedi set, so that would definitely play into it.
Yeah.
Most definitely. Well, it would also sort of redeem him for the prequels, because a lot of people are very polarized about their opinions on Hayden, but I actually don't think he was a bad actor. I just think that George Lucas is not an actor's director, whereas Rian Johnson is.
Absolutely.
I think one of the best things I heard about him is if you watch the prequels with no sound with Hayden Christensen, you can see that he's acting. You just can't hear it.
Yeah.
Every time I hear about Zen and that he's like a double crosser, and like I think of that he knows somebody's secrets, I'm like, his code is so big because it's full of secrets.
That's that's one of the things that confuses me, is because like, didn't we get his name as DJ in the Vanity Fair and stuff like that? Like,
So
That's the only thing
in
that
Vanity Fair,
confuses me.
it says that he doesn't have a name per se, but people can call him DJ or do call him DJ. And this came out after the Vanity Fair article. At least this one was posted. So they're like, actually, this guy is named Zen. He has a name. He doesn't have no name.
So it's possible that everyone calls him DJ, but like he ends up, maybe like the First Order sympathizers call him DJ, but the Resistance calls him Zen. So if any transmissions are mixed up, then he can't be revealed as a double crosser.
I never
That would
thought of
make
that.
sense.
That's brilliant. I never would have thought of that.
Yeah. And neither of them are his actual name. And that's why it's... Because I think the Vanity Fair article says you never hear his actual name.
Well, and that's why everyone is so insistent that DJ is short for Dark Jedi, and I don't buy that. It's so...
No, I thought it was shorthand for Darth Jar Jar.
Oh, poor Jar Jar.
I just thought they somehow got, Full House back into the Star Wars trilogy and Star Wars World, and his parents really liked it.
Oh, man.
That's right. Full House was actually a broadcast from space that we aired.
Oh, snap.
Yeah, how's that for a Snoke theory?
But yeah, I mean, but in this, I think it would make for a very interesting movie. I'm not sure if this is what's going to happen, but it still even plays into the trailer we've seen, which makes sense because this came out after the trailer. So it could just be, this is what I want to see, and people are taking it for real.
Yeah.
I think that it has some credibility to it in my opinion, in the sense that it does line up with a lot of the things we've already heard, but at the same time it could just be someone taking everything we've already heard and making their own conjecture.
Exactly, kind of retconning and making, all the rumors fit this narrative versus the other way around.
But it does fit just about everything we've heard. So in that sense, this is either the most well-crafted spoiler I've ever heard, or it's legit.
The only thing it doesn't have is we know that Daisy, Mark, and Adam filmed together in Ireland, and they have a fight. And that's the only thing missing from this.
Yeah.
It could be that Adam wasn't there as physical Kylo Ren, but more so a manifestation of Kylo Ren.
Oh, that could work.
It may not have actually, been Kylo Ren there. It could have been, some whole other thing. Maybe he filmed a Force vision there on the island. But, and also the article doesn't seem to go into the entire movie, because it brings up a fight between Luke and Snoke, but it doesn't ever talk about them leaving the island.
Exactly.
So,
that's true.
I think that there's a lot missing from it, which could also kind of reduce some of its credibility, in the sense that, you only know stuff from the trailer and other spoilers rather than the entire endgame.
Well,
Go ahead.
My understanding, and don't quote me or anything like that, but my understanding of how it works at Lucasfilm is that things are very compartmentalized. So
that makes sense.
Part A knows what Part A is responsible for, and Party B knows what Party B is responsible for, so that way, if someone is angry and wants to go spill all the beans on 4chan or Reddit, they're not going to spoil everything in the movie.
That's fair.
The other thing I was thinking is, and this is totally like schooling that I went through too, is this could just be like a quarto edition. So like in Shakespeare, you have the first folio, which is what a lot of people refer to as the script of the play, but there are quarto witnesses, and the first one is usually crap, because it's that guy who just saw Hamlet remembering the play through his eyes and trying to get it all down to print out to give people. So maybe, we're missing things because it was, this guy doesn't remember them, and this is what he felt was important, or she, or the 4chan user, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Sorry. And maybe that's it too. It's just a quarter.
An unreliable narration, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't know the end game, so they don't know what's important to say. So that makes sense.
Exactly.
But what is it?
So we know that. Mm-hmm.
I'll say what is interesting is what we do know does indeed tie into this with like the marketing being different and the marketing making you think that Luke did go to the dark side, which touches on what we talked about earlier, because that is a way to put butts in seats, which is ultimately the goal of Lucasfilms, to make money and to make people go, what? Luke's evil? That will definitely have people in the theater wanting to know what's going on.
Exactly. I mean, they definitely didn't call it just the font in red for no reason.
Exactly. Oh, and I found this to be really interesting, is with the teaser poster, Luke is in red. And Kylo was in red. The only character, well, even Rey to an extent is in red.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm about to pull my poster out. Give me a second.
I was like, I could go into the hallway.
The way the lightsaber goes is it starts out with Rey blue, and then halfway up it turns kind of purpley, and that's where Kylo is. And then up at the top with the red, especially that dominating kind of size, is Luke.
Well, it looks like the light source itself for the poster is coming from the lightsaber, and it fades into the gradient between that blue and that red. But I do think it's interesting that they put Kylo in the area of purple, which is kind of halfway in between blue and red, or the combination of blue and red. And it's
the balance.
Exactly. It's a little more ambiguous.
And he's closer to Rey than Luke is. Like, his face is lower than Luke's. Like, because their eyes don't match up at all, or their noses.
Yeah.
And it's not just different face sizes.
Well, and if someone looked at that poster and had never seen Star Wars and didn't know the context, it looks like Luke's the bad guy.
Yep.
Yeah, it looks like there's two bad guys, and Rey is going to do something to them.
I mean, this could be my bias speaking through, but if I didn't watch The Force Awakens and I hadn't seen the context of any of the Star Wars movies and it was just looking at it like, oh, that's an interesting poster, it would look like Kylo's the good guy because he's this good-looking proverbial dude with a really, really pretty girl and this really sort of grumpy, menacing-looking old guy.
Exactly, yeah.
I mean, that could be my bias speaking through, but I thought that was a very, very, very interesting design choice.
I mean, it's interesting that this is the poster, basically. Like, you could have so many different things that is the poster and what you would put on it, and we see it's these three characters and not anybody else.
Yeah, I know that there was, I remember when they revealed it at Celebration, like, I audibly gasped. I was like, what? This is our poster? This is amazing. Because,
well, and
I know a lot of people
everybody gasped.
Yeah.
Because that was the first time any of them were seeing it, too. Like,
yeah.
They're like, oh.
And I know there was this whole kerfuffle about Finn and Poe and Rose and whatnot not being on it. But I think that kind of is leading us to the direction that the important story that we really care about is this whole, like, struggle between Luke and Rey and Ben, in my opinion. So it's...
I think we're going to see, like, the A plot is going to be Luke and Rey and Kylo and the Force and stuff with that. And the B plot is going to be we're going to go to the affluent planet. It's Poe and Finn and Rose and everything. Not saying that that's bad, but the main plot is Force. The B plot is the Resistance.
Exactly.
And this poster makes sense then.
Well, it's not going to be our final poster either. We're still going to get a different poster once it hits theaters. That's going to have all of the cast on it.
Yeah.
Well, they're putting this poster up in movie theaters right now too.
I've looked for it.
It's the teaser poster.
Yeah.
So until we get the official poster, that's what they're going to say. It's the same as, like, putting up the Captain America shield and just putting a date on it. It's a teaser. You don't get anything from it other than, what we're already reading into it.
Exactly.
So, is there more that we want to say on this theory, or are we ready to vote on its Snoke ability?
I actually wanted to ask about one last thing that I think plays into the Snoke ability, is what do we think of the idea that Snoke changes bodies? And
I love it!
And where does that put Kylo Ren then?
You go, Voldemort.
Well, I mean, we already see in the Aftermath series that Palpatine was looking to switch bodies as a way of extending his life. So it's something that we have set up as a thing that happens. And so to use the Aftermath book series to bring some more like canon into this universe is really interesting to me, in the sense that, Snoke has been constantly body hopping for centuries, and it would explain his need for Kylo Ren and why he seems to treat him just a little bit differently than Hux. Because I mean, based on that particular spoiler, I'm of the opinion that he is specifically grooming Kylo Ren to take over his body.
Yes.
Well, and you have is it the same Aftermath, the Chuck Winding books, where Leia is like putting her hand over her stomach because baby, Ben is fretting and feels something, and it makes it so the idea that he's been targeted literally from in the womb is like, yes, Snoke found his new body, and it's going to be this child because he's, the heir of this chosen one, for lack of a better term, and he was scared because he had no idea what to do and how to say anything, and it's been going on since then.
Yeah, and it's way easier to get someone to do what you want if you've been grooming them since before they could even talk.
Well, it really also sets up that Kylo, or Ben, was conflicted, because even from the second he was born and before he was born, you had this force on him that we can, theorize as Snoke, and we don't know until it's confirmed. But you also have his parents, who are both pulling him in different directions. Even their nicknames for him are completely different. Leia has this expectation of who he's going to be. In the book, she calls him calls Ben her little angel. And then you have Han, on the other hand, who's like, oh no, you're my little bandit. And you definitely get the sense that both parents want something completely different for their child, and it was also implied in Bloodline that he was forced to hide his Force abilities.
Yeah.
And if you have this voice whispering to you in the back of your head the whole time for nefarious purposes, but when you're a kid, you don't know the difference, that, you are amazing, you're this perfect balance of light and dark, and you're the perfect marble for a sculptor. It's creepy, but it definitely sets up the dynamic of what Snoke is trying to do, if this rumor is true.
Yeah,
honestly,
true.
Yeah, and it just, I don't know, it's creepy. Also, I always thought that Leia calling Ben her little angel, I was like, oh, that's like a throwback to when Anakin called Padme his angel, and so Leia really does have Anakin in her, and thus they picked the same nickname.
I never picked up on that when I read it. It was just like, huh.
It's adorable.
I was just like, oh, that's so adorable. Also, Leia's more like Anakin.
So yeah, Snoke ability factor?
I'd say about 2. Like, it has a lot of good points, and it has the flow of a movie to it, and it does capture a lot of what we already know. And it would make an interesting movie. I'd watch it.
Yeah, I think interesting about it too as well. If I knew 100% that it was true, then I would definitely give it a 1. But the fact that it lines up almost too well with the spoilers almost makes it seem like it's handcrafted. But just the sheer magnitude of true information that we've already gotten that's welded into this makes me put it solidly at 2 Snokes.
I would definitely have to agree with 2 Snokes. Actually, no, scratch that. I'm going to do 1.5. We can do decimals.
Yeah, we can.
So I'm gonna do one point.
It's when Snoke is between bodies. He's, the spirit of Snoke and a half.
Exactly. I don't know what it is. There's something about. I hate to see, especially for the first episode, that I'll believe everything I read on the internet, because that is not true. But there's something about this that it rings true, and I wouldn't bet a paycheck on it, but I would. I definitely think that there are some really, really, really interesting things in here, and with the idea that the author of this leak said that there are new things that are coming out in the universe and in the lore of the Force. That was said before Rian Johnson gave the interview that said that he got to change some things or add some new parts and explore some new parts of the lore. So that makes me tend to believe it a little bit more.
Yeah, I'll accept your 0.5 discrepancy with us, only because I want this storyline.
Yeah. It sounds so good.
Well, it sets up a lot of characters to do a lot of different things, so that's exciting too.
Oh, episode 9 following that storyline is just going to be crazy.
Good luck, Colin Trevorrow.
Yes.
Oh, Colin.
He's not as bad as.
I'll run in heels if you put me in episode 9.
Oh God, I retract what I was about to say.
No, Raph just died. It's information.
Oh God, I was about to say he's not that bad, but no, I can't.
No, he's not.
I don't know. It's like people are wanting him to fail, and I don't want him to fail. But
Not at all. Well, they want him replaced right now, is what they're like, get someone else to do it. I'm like, he's writing the script right now. Like, we don't have a whole lot of time for a new guy to come in and completely rewrite the script, and the script is where we'd have the most problems. But
well, and he's writing with the Lucasfilm, Think Pod or writers team, so I'm sure he'll throw out something like, and then we do this, and they could be like, oh no, Colin, no, that's not what we're going to do.
I just think he needs to call up Patty Jenkins for some input. That's all.
that would be awesome.
So do we want to move on to the second theory that we wanted to talk about?
Yes.
Sure.
You know more about it than I do, because you showed me the article, so why don't you talk about it?
So the next rumor we have is based on a Mashable article. And I'm not going to read the whole article because it's kind of long, but we can definitely put a link to it in the description if you want to see it yourself. Basically, what it boils down to is that in the Darth Vader comic by Marvel, they kind of have Darth Vader looking for any sort of Jedi that are in hiding. And so he's asking a droid to do a search on just different Jedi, and he ends up asking about a Barash taker, which the comic then goes on to explain that the Barash oath is a sort of penance that Jedi take whenever they don't, live up to their what's the word I'm looking for?
Like responsibilities?
Yeah, they don't live up to the oath they took to the Jedi Order. They feel like they failed in some way, so they take a Barash oath and they go into exile. And it's really interesting to me that this concept has come up in a Darth Vader comic when everyone's kind of wondering why Luke went off to this island all by himself. And so the article posits that Luke took a Barash oath and exiled himself because of his failures as far as Ben Solo went. Which I think is a pretty interesting concept in the sense that it means that Luke would feel some sort of responsibility for what happened to Ben Solo. He would feel some sort of responsibility for him being Kylo Ren, whether that's not telling him the truth, whether that's not fighting Snoke harder, whether it's not paying attention to what was going on, some sort of aspect like that. The article suggests that Luke feels bad because he taught Kylo Ren how to use the Force, which I think is nonsense. But I think it's definitely more in line with him feeling responsible for his nephew's fall to the dark side. So what do you guys think about this Barash oath? Or maybe Barash. I'm not sure.
Well, I think it's only in print, so we can pronounce it however we want until somebody says it on screen. I think it's interesting, and I think it would make a lot of sense as to why Luke would then split up the map that he has. So he has the one piece that Lor San Tarka has, and then the one piece in R2. So he's saying, I have to go be alone, but I still want to leave this little piece to come get me if you need me. But and it sounds like Luke. He takes on a lot of responsibility. He leaves trading with Yoda because Leia and Han are in trouble, so he's going to feel personally responsible for anything Kylo Ren does. And it makes sense that he would take this oath.
I think so too. And about the map, I think that would maybe tie into the previous rumor in the sense that if the previous rumor is true, it would tie into the fact that he knew that someone was coming. So he would leave that part of the map for them to find somehow, knowing full well that they would get it if they were truly the one to come.
And if Luke is still believing there's good in everybody, he's the one that saw there's good in Vader, and he's still probably like, there's good in Ben. I'm leaving this here so when he finally finds it again, you can come and find me. And everything that has happened, I've atoned for, and we can start over.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Absolutely. Well, I also find it to be really interesting, and this just ties back into Bloodline. I love Bloodline. I've read that book so many freaking times. But in Bloodline, it talks about how Luke was very opposed to Leia and Han hiding Ben's lineage, and that Luke wanted to tell him the whole story and the true story. And since Ben, essentially, we don't know how long Ben was training with Luke, but we can assume that it was for a good portion of his young, adolescent, and adult life. He never pulled Ben aside and said, listen, here's the truth. And I guarantee he definitely feels some responsibility for that, because, I mean, how does this poor kid feel when it's blasted all over the holonet? Oh, guess what? You have Grandpappy Vader.
I think it's suggested in the novelization for The Force Awakens that both Snoke and Kylo Ren know that Vader turned back to the light side. But I don't know how that would actually play into his whole mindset with it.
I'd have to reread the adult novelization of The Force Awakens, as I've only read it once. But I do remember Leia saying that Snoke knows about that Anakin turned back to the light side at the very end. But I think it was Pablo. Someone asked Pablo, and I think it might have been at the Chilean Comic-Con. But Pablo commented on it and saying, because someone asked, like, doesn't Kylo Ren know that Anakin was good? You know, he wasn't Darth Vader his whole existence. He came back. And Pablo's response, and this isn't verbatim, but essentially what he said was that Kylo was told two versions of the story, and he had the version that his parents told him, and then the version that Snoke told him, and he chooses to believe what Snoke told him. And
you can
that makes sense.
Compartmentalize it. Yeah, and it makes sense. He can compartmentalize it. Words. Because Anakin Skywalker was always good, and he dies Anakin Skywalker. So he's the light side. Darth Vader is always dark side and always Sith and always bad. And he's talking to Darth Vader's helmet. He wants to be like grandfather Darth Vader, not grandfather Anakin Skywalker. And it's like, your son is dead. Ben Solo is dead and Kylo Ren is alive. I think he very much sees these as two separate people as well.
That makes sense, because I've always kind of taken some umbrage with the whole idea that Anakin and Darth Vader are two separate characters. But it does seem like they're kind of pushing this idea in the sense that they are, two sides of the same coin. And I think Ben Solo and Kylo Ren are much the same. And so you bring up a really good point with the whole idea that when he says your son is dead, he's following the same mindset of Anakin Skywalker is dead.
And I think Luke can take this oath because he was fully willing to teach Ben probably about Darth Vader and Anakin, and yes, you can make mistakes, but you can also come back and be who you're supposed to be or do the right thing in the end. And Leia basically said, please don't tell him that this happened, because he knows Anakin's his grandfather, but I don't want him to know that Vader is his grandfather. And I would have guessed that Luke would be torn, because on one hand he wants to tell this great story, and on the other hand his twin sister is saying, please don't tell my son this.
I think knowing about it would have really helped him in the sense that, when he does have this temptation and this pull to the dark side, and he feels like he's probably a bad person or a terrible person because he feels this pull to the dark side, and he might as well just fall. I think it would have been really beneficial for someone to have told him, look, man, your grandfather was evil as crap, but he managed to overcome his urges for the dark side and fall back to the light. That kind of story, I think, would have really helped him with his whole struggle with being tempted to the dark side.
But just a heads up, it runs in our family.
Yeah.
Be warned.
Yeah.
I mean, even look to the dark side.
Yeah.
Luke must feel like he has the weight of the world on his shoulders because this happened once, and I'm sure he feels responsible, at least in some part, for it happening again, and because of his own nephew, no less, when he could have had the opportunity. You know what I mean? Hindsight's always 20/20. You could have told him. What would have happened if you had told him? Would things have changed? And so it definitely makes sense that he took this Barash oath, to go back and learn and start at the beginning. Start at Octu.
Yeah, and think about it this way: we end Return of the Jedi as he's the new Jedi, and there's only one, and it's about a year or so later that Ben is born. So in that mindset, he's probably like, yes, another person that's as force sensitive as me, and I can train with him and we can go learn together and I can tell him this amazing story. And Leia probably immediately is like, we're not telling him this.
Luke does have a lot that he would probably feel guilty for. And I know that there's a lot of Luke fanboys that are like, he did everything he could to save his nephew and blah, blah, blah. But I think if you really get into the meat of the character, you see that there were some failures in all parts.
Yes. And I really hope The Last Jedi goes into the fact that Luke, Han, and Leia, they all made mistakes. And that they had this boy who had the legacy of the Chosen One on his shoulders, and then had the legacy of Luke Skywalker on his shoulders that the galaxy think is a myth. And that he needed help and he needed guidance, and that there was a definite lack of that, and that all three of them made a lot of mistakes when it came to this kid, and it culminated in him turning to the dark side and destroying everything that Luke had built.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Is there more we want to say, or do we want to vote, or?
I'm ready to vote. Are you two ready?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess
I'll...
Oh, go ahead.
So I'm going to go ahead and rate this on a Snokeability level of 3 Snokes. I think that it is a very interesting concept, and I think it could easily be applied to the storyline. And I do think the timing of the introduction of it is interesting. But we don't really have any sort of information from the actual movie that would, like leaks-wise, that would lead us to believe that that is the direction they're going. But yeah, I don't think it's completely unheard of, so I'm going to go ahead and say that it's 3 because it's believable. It's just unknown if that's the direction they plan to take it.
Yeah. I give it about 2.5, and it seems like something Luke Skywalker would do, and the half is because I don't think they'll ever mention it in the actual movies. It would be mentioned in a supplemental material like a novelization or a comic.
Great point.
Yep, I don't really know what else I can add that you two haven't already said. I would have to rate it, I'd say probably a 2. I'd say a solid 2. I don't expect it to be addressed directly in the film, but the timing of the new information that is being released, because I think everything that comes out now is considered like the journey to The Last Jedi, just like everything leading up to Episode 7 was the journey to The Force Awakens, and it had some influence in the movie, even if it wasn't directly stated.
Yeah, I think that all makes sense.
Okay, literally one last thing. My friend just texted me an article that I will link both of you to, and the people emailed the Lucasfilm press department or publicity and asked them if they would have opportunities for interviews at Comic-Con. And they said, and the response from Lucasfilm publicity is, "Thank you for your email. We appreciate you reaching out to us. Our presence at SDCC 2017 will be focused on our booth on the convention floor. So there will be no press events or interview opportunities this year. Thank you for your time and understanding." And you pretty much can't have a panel and not really have interview opportunities.
Yeah, that
So
sounds like
it's
they're
like
not
they're-
doing much at Comic-Con.
Gotcha.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You say that's not surprising. I would assume that Disney would focus on Marvel at San Diego Comic-Con and then keep Star Wars at D23, which is all of their own IPs.
I mean, they did have it in 2015, and that was amazing. But I have a feeling it's the whole Han Solo Catch-22. D23 was going to be Han Solo, and SDCC was going to be Last Jedi. And without Han Solo to show at D23, you want to fill that void at your own convention rather than the Comic-Con.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, they definitely have some damage control. Whether they're actually going to address it or they're going to go, look at Last Jedi. This is what we're going to be focused on anyway. Look at Last Jedi. It's perfect. It's awesome. Don't ask us about Han Solo. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
The man
Okay,
behind the camera.
so, yeah.
I guess this wraps up our first episode of the Council of the Whills. If you like us, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe, comment, let us know. We love feedback.
Thank you for listening to the Council of Whills. Feel free to follow us on Tumblr, leave a comment here wherever you're listening, or email us at
councilofthewills@gmail.com.
All right. Thank you, everyone, again, and we hope to talk to you guys again. Take care.
See ya.
Bye.